Hello, my name is Blossoms and welcome to another Genshin Impact video. And today we're going to be doing a talent showcase for the character Xinyan. She just came out yesterday and I actually really like the way she plays and I can't wait to show her off to you guys. We're going to go over her talents as well as her constellations and maybe some build suggestions for you guys in the future. But before we get into the talents, don't forget to like and subscribe. Maybe share the video if you're feeling that generous. I always appreciate the support and it helps the channel grow. But without further ado, let's go ahead and show off Xinyan, the Pyro Claymore user. Before we actually show off her talents here, we'll go ahead and show off her hidden percentage here when you ascend her, which is going to be attack percent, which is really nice considering Xinyan kind of plays between physical damage bonus and pyro damage bonus, and having attack percent just allows you to be able to build for either and not really worry about it, which is very nice for this character. I was kind of concerned about that. That's why I went ahead and leveled her up to this point, but we'll go ahead and check out her talents now. So for her first skill here, we have her normal attack, Dance on Fire. Nothing too crazy. It's actually very normal Claymore stuff here. Nothing too crazy, but here is the different scalings for those of you interested. And then this is what it looks like as you go up. And the books required for it seem to be the Teachings of Gold. And then this is what our normal attack pattern looks like. Nothing too crazy, seems pretty neat. And then we've also got the charge attack, which is just the spin to win stuff right there. Nothing that we haven't really seen before though. And then for her second talent here, we have Sweeping Fervor. Xinyan brandishes her instrument, dealing pyro damage on nearby enemies, forming a shield made out of her audience's passion. The shield damage absorption scales based on Xinyan's defense and the number of enemies hit. So hitting one enemy grants a shield, one level 1 ad lib, and then hitting 2 enemies gets you level 2, and then level 3 will give you a shield, and then that shield will also deal intermittent pyro damage to nearby enemies. So you have to hit 3 enemies for that, but that does change with one of her later talents, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But we'll go ahead and show this off real quick. This also infuses her with pyro, so that's important to note. It is a little cleanse option there, so it will give you the pyro status below, as well as the fact that it has a better damage absorption against pyro damage. But here are the skill attributes and how they scale. You see the dot is 33.6%. That ain't bad. And then this is how that scales. It does increase the dot, which is very nice, as well as the skill damage and the scaling of her shield. Very important to know. And then this is what that talent looks like. Just the level 1 right here, she does a sweep right there, and it gives her a shield that has these little kind of musical sound waves and whatnot, which is pretty cool, and I like that because it flows with her rock and roll type of character. Alright, so I'm here in Spiral Abyss. We'll go ahead and show off her talent in action here. I figured it'd be a little bit easier to show off her shield with enemies that are more towards her level right now, and I don't have the talent leveled up, so we'll go ahead and get some of these nerds going. And we'll show the dot real quick. So you see we hit a few of them there, and now we have a dot over time, and yes, that does transfer to your other characters, which is pretty nice. One thing to note there is that the shield isn't extremely strong. I imagine that does change the more defense you give her, obviously, as well as leveling up the talent. But that is important to note. You do want to invest at least a little bit in defense to buff up her shield because it isn't that strong by default. So that is a little bit important when it comes to Xinyan. But moving on to the third talent here, we have Rift Revolution. Strumming rapidly, Xinyan launches nearby enemies and deals physical damage to them, hyping up the crowd. The sheer intensity of the atmosphere will cause explosions that deal pyro damage to nearby enemies. And then these are the different skill attributes for those of you interested. It doesn't scale too terribly. 341 at base isn't that bad, and then it has a 40% pyro dot. You'll see what exactly that means. It has a duration of 2 seconds. It kind of expands outward, and it has a relatively nice energy cost of 60 and a relatively good cooldown of 15 seconds. And then this is how it scales. It just scales the skill damage and the pyro damage over time, which isn't too bad. Alright, so here we are in Spiral Abyss. We'll go ahead and show off her Q right here. You see it does physical damage there to start, and then it expands out the pyro there, dealing pretty solid damage. Nothing too crazy, but definitely solid. Now moving on to our fourth talent here, we have The Show Goes On, even without an audience. Decreases the number of enemy Sweeping Fervor must hit to trigger each level of shielding. This is what I meant earlier with the second talent, Sweeping Fervor. This basically just makes it to where you don't have to hit 3 enemies to get the max shield. You only need to hit 2, and you only need to hit 1 for the shield level 2. So basically shield level 1 doesn't even exist once you hit the talent. So this is Actually extremely nice, making it a lot easier to proc that damage over time, which is very valuable for your team. But moving on to that 5th talent here, we have Now That's Rock and Roll. Characters shielded by Sweeping Fervor deal 15% increased physical damage. This is a pretty strong talent and definitely leans into the support aspect of Xinyan. However, I do currently have a problem with it, as it doesn't fit with that many team compositions. And what I mean by that is that preferably you want to get your shield up and do the damage over time, and then swap to a character that is going to be able to react with the pyro reactions. And although there are characters that can obviously react with the pyro reactions constantly, something like Child for instance, Child doesn't necessarily do physical damage, so he's not getting this bonus. And there are very few characters that really mix with this, like Kaya does mix with this, that's pretty nice. And there are a couple other characters that do, but nobody does it quite extremely effectively. Some pyro characters do, but obviously then you're not creating those reactions. So I think she's going to fit into other characters, like pairing with other characters in the future really well, but currently she doesn't pair with too many, with this talent at least, very well. However, I would still 100% use her for the damage over time on the shield, as I probably will be pairing her with Child to get those constant vaporize procs. I think that's going to be a very fun play. But you know, there are definitely plenty of things she can fit into, but nobody quite maximizes both of these. Like Razor can get those constant overload procs and get the physical damage increase, which is nice. However, the problem with overload is that it constantly throws opponents across the field. So oftentimes you have to chase after them, which can be annoying and I personally don't like. However, if you don't mind that, then obviously Xinyan pairs really well as Razor, but then you have 2 Claymore users, which I don't like on a team. You know, so she does fill a interesting niche, but I don't know if she fills that niche with other characters extremely well right now. And I know that was really long-winded for this talent, but I wanted to get that out for when you're building your team comps. And I would just say I wouldn't really worry too much about this bonus. It is good, yes. However, I don't think it's the most important aspect to her. Moving on to her final talent here, we have a Rad Recipe. This is her passive talent here. It's just when a perfect cooking is achieved on a defense boosting dish, Xinyan has a 12% chance to obtain double the product. Now, moving on towards the constellations, I will say Xinyan is one of those characters that certainly changes with their constellations. However, you don't need to get all the way to C6 or even C4. I'd say her most valuable constellations are literally just the Constellation 1 and 2. 4 and 6 are good, but they aren't insanely good. But I'll stop talking, we'll get into them. We have Fatal Acceleration to start. Upon scoring a crit hit, it increases the attack speed of Xinyan's normal and charged attacks by 12% for 5 seconds, and can occur once every 5 seconds. This is good if you want Xinyan to be your carry. However, if you want her as a support, I don't think this is the best talent for you. It is pretty solid, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's the best one for her. If you want to keep her on the field as much as possible, this is a great talent. But I think the most valuable talent, without a doubt, or the most valuable constellation here, without a doubt, is going to be the second constellation, Impromptu Opening. This is where I want to get my Xinyan. I'm going to wish on the banner until I get this, essentially, and hopefully I get it, because Rift Revolution's physical damage has its crit rate increased by 100% and will form a shield at shield level 3 Rave when cast. So Impromptu Opening here is extremely strong because it guarantees you a crit hit on the physical side of her elemental burst, which is really cool because you could make like a neat build where you just only focus on crit damage and then that physical aspect just does like a stupid amount of damage, which I think could be really fun. But the really valuable part of this is the fact that you get her shield level to 3, meaning you're going to be getting that DOT, which is why I think you're going to want to focus something like the Favonius Greatsword on her. That's going to give her that extra energy recharge, as well as focusing on crit rate, because when you hit those crits, then you're going to be getting your energy back, and then you're going to be constantly having your shield up doing that dot over time, which is extremely strong. Then moving on to the third constellation here, we have Double Stop. Nothing too crazy, just increases your Sweeping Fervor by 3. And then her fourth constellation here is Wildfire Rhythm. Sweeping Fervor swing damage decreases opponent's physical resistance by 15% for 12 seconds. This is very strong considering it also buffs your physical attack with the shield there. So as I said, once I think there's more characters that really fit into the support role that Xinyan wants to give, then this is going to be an extremely strong support character. But for now, she's just a pretty solid support character, and I think C4 will be way more valuable once more characters fit that bill. Then moving on to Constellation 5, we have Screamin' for an Encore. Just increases the level of Rift Evolution by 3, maximum of 15. We know how it all works by now. Moving on to Constellation 6, though, we have Rockin' in a Flaming World. Decreases the stamina consumption of Xinyan's charged attacks by 30%. Additionally, Xinyan's charged attacks gain an attack bonus equal to 50% of her defense. This is really weird because it feels like they're only dipping their toes in the water of you wanting to put defense on her, which is kind of weird. I think this C6 is okay, like it certainly helps, but I don't think it's essential at all, really. And you can just kind of ignore it for the most part. I think you're fine just stopping at like C4 or C5 if you're really going for Xinyan. And before we get into the artifact and build suggestion portion of the video, we will go over the little bit of lore here. We've got this right here, as well as her character details. I'll scroll through and you can pause if you would like to read through her little bit of lore. Moving on to the build suggestion portion video, you're going to really need to micromanage a lot of her stats, as she does want some defense. She wants some crit rate, obviously, for her kit, and she wants some crit damage for her kit, as well as deciding between physical damage and pyro bonus damage, depending on how you want to play her. Obviously, if you want Xinyan to be your carry on the team, you're probably going to be wanting to go for either Gladiator's Destiny, providing you that extra 35% normal attack damage, and plus the attack percent right there, or probably the better set right here would be the Retracing Bolide, because that is going to give you the increased shield strength as well as increasing your normal and charge attack damage, which is going to be very strong. If you want Xinyan to be your carry, I think you're hands down going to want to go with the Retracing Bolide set, especially with a feather like this where it has defense percent and attack percent. That's really going to go far for you. And then you can still focus on things like physical damage bonus, as well as sneaking in the attack percent main stats, as long as you have these nice little defense substats for her shield. However, if you're like me and you want to build Xinyan more as a support, you're probably going to be going with a mixed set for now until maybe we get more sets in the future. For now, I think I'm debating between something like a 2-piece Witch of Flames. The 4-piece doesn't really benefit her that much, but the 2-piece with the pyro bonus damage is nice. And then you could also do a 2-piece of the physical damage right here, getting that physical damage of 25%, which is very nice. However, she also could easily do something like the Noblesse Oblige set if you want to focus on spamming her Q, and you could also do something like the Exile set to go ahead and give her that extra energy recharge. That might help as well. There's all sorts of different combos you could do. I think probably the way I'm going to go is going to be a combination of the Crimson Witch of Flames and the Bloodstained Chivalry, or, you know, the Crimson Witch of Flames and the 2-piece Gladiator getting that extra attack, or maybe, you know, the 2-piece Bloodstain and the 2-piece Gladiator. Her support kits right now for artifact-wise in terms of the set bonus aren't exactly the best. You're probably better off building her as a carry for now. Something with the Retracing Bolide might be more effective for the moment, but when we get artifacts in the future, she could be one of the best supports, is what I'm saying. But I think I'm still going to end up building her for a support with the 2-piece Gladiator and then maybe the 2-piece pyro damage bonus, because the way I want to use her is casting her shield and ult and having her shield do the damage over time, the pyro damage over time, and then having that react with my other characters, because I think that'll be a really fun way to play her. As for weapons for Xinyan, I've mentioned this before, but I think hands down the Favonius Greatsword is probably going to be your best option, as Xinyan does want to focus on critical percentage as well as critical damage, and if you get that Constellation 2, then you're always hitting a critical when you do your Q, which means that's going to be regenerating some energy for you, which is very nice. So if you have a Refinement Rank 2 Favonius Greatsword like me, or even more refinements than that, then that's going to be huge amounts of energy for you. I'm constantly getting her Elemental Burst just by having a little bit of crit rate on her, so I can imagine once I'm able to actually flesh out her artifacts a little bit better, she'll be a lot stronger. However, for alternatives, you could easily do something like the Sacrificial Greatsword, to where you can instantly reset your shield, making your shield uptime pretty much infinite, I think, at that point, which would be extremely strong. But there are definitely certain options. If you want her to be your carry, then probably something like Prototype Animus is going to be your option, or something like White Blind even could even work, as that's going to give you the defense percent for your shield, and then you don't need to worry about it at all on your artifacts, which is definitely something you might want to consider. Well, I do think that is going to be it for Xinyan. I really like the way she plays, and I can't wait to mess around with her artifacts and try to involve her in my team, because she's an absolute rock star, and I love that about her. And her damage over time effect is really cool, and the way it also protects her team is very cool. So I'm very excited to try and build her as a support to maybe combine with my Tartaglia as getting those constant vaporize procs, or maybe something with like a cryo character could be really beneficial as well, getting those melt procs. But other than that, that's going to be it for the video. My name is Blossoms, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Peace.